No nanny lasted with the millionaire's son until this one came and changed everything forever. In the heart of the sprawling mansion, whispers roamed like shadows. The air was thick with an electric tension, and every creak in the grand wooden floorboards echoed like a warning. Nathaniel Sinclair, heir to a fortune larger than life, was not just a boy, he was a legend, a riotous tempest of mischief and unpredictability that had sent countless caretakers fleeing. But today, as a storm brewed outside, something stirred within those walls, something that felt different, almost alive. The last nanny, a woman with nerves of steel, had hardly made it past one dinner before she bolted for the door, her eyes wide with sheer terror. Rumors buzzed around town. Some said Nathaniel could speak to the storm clouds, others claimed he could summon shadows to dance at his command. A chill crawled down the spine of anyone who dared mention him, and parents often warned their children, "Stay away from that house." It was a backdrop for dreams and nightmares layered with secrets. The storm raged on, wind howling like a banshee as thunder rumbled, echoing the doubts clanging in the hearts of those who dared take on the position of caretaker. Yet, as fate would have it, the new nanny, Lucy, with her wild curls and indomitable spirit, wasn't daunted by the tales spun in the town's corners. She had come equipped with a heart full of defiance and a resume that failed to mention the fear others felt reaching those boundaries. As she stepped under the portico, a streak of lightning illuminated her face, revealing a brave smile but a quiver in her hands. The moment she walked through the door, Nathaniel appeared, dark curls framing a mischievous grin that promised trouble. But today, beneath that boyish charm, Lucy sensed a flicker of something deeper, a longing hidden away among his furtive glances. Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The tension in the room thickened, alive with possibility and dread. Lucy glanced around the large, ornate sitting room adorned with faded photographs of families long gone, their eyes seeming to follow her every move. And as the clock struck, the sound resonated through the house like a warning bell. It was time for dinner, a ritual that had spelled disaster for many before her. She felt a tightening in her chest as she steeled herself against whatever came next. Nathaniel's gaze held hers, curious yet tempestuous, like the storm outside, urging her to speak, to break the silence that wrapped around them both like a cloak of secrets. As she took a step forward, the lights flickered ominously, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. There was something deeper within the shadows, she could feel it, and with each passing moment, she knew she was on the verge of uncovering a mystery far beyond Nathaniel's wild antics. What was hidden in this house? What darkness lurked behind those playful eyes? A sudden crash boomed, resonating from the upper floor. The sound was that of 1,000 lives unraveling, echoing down the hall like a warning. Lucy's heart raced as Nathaniel's expression shifted from playful to something darker, a glint of fear sparking in his eyes. "They've come for you," he whispered, and just like that, Lucy felt a tremor of dread ripple through her soul. What had she stepped into? The questioning gnawed at her, urging her forward into the unknown, as the walls seemed to close in. Being part of this story felt like a temptation, pulling her toward the unfolding chaos within the mansion. What was going to happen next? And how would she survive the tempest that was Nathaniel Sinclair? Lucy felt her blood run cold as the walls seemed to breathe around her. Nathaniel's words hung heavily in the air, an omen echoing through the stillness that followed the crash above. Her mind raced, scrambling for an explanation, but what could possibly lurk within the shadows of this labyrinthine mansion? What had she gotten herself into? She turned to Nathaniel, the boy who had promised to be her charge, yet looked more like a co-conspirator in whatever malevolence haunted this place. The defiance she'd carried into the mansion seemed to crumble, replaced by a primal urge to flee. Yet his wide eyes held her in place. "Who's coming for me?" she demanded, fighting back the rising tide of panic. Before Nathaniel could reply, another crash reverberated through the house, rattling the glass in the frames around them. This sound was sharper, more distinct, a door slamming with an insistent finality. Rushing footsteps followed, heavy and deliberate, reverberating like thunder. "Stay behind me," Nathaniel whispered, his earlier playfulness replaced by a palpable urgency. The enchanting facade of the mansion quickly dimmed, replaced by a chilling portent of danger. Lucy could feel her heart pounding in her chest as she moved instinctively closer to the boy. Something was here, and it was closing in. The lights flickered again, dimming for just a moment, but it was enough to reveal flashes of movement from the upper level. A shadow darted across the foyer, long and sinuous, an apparition slinking through the gaps where the light faltered. Goosebumps prickled on her skin, and every instinct screamed to run, but a strange pull tethered her there. "Who is it?" she urged. "What do they want?" "They want what's in the house," Nathaniel said, his gaze darting to the staircase, where that pervasive shadow now lingered ominously. "And you shouldn't have come here." His words twisted the knife of fear deep into her gut. She felt totally unprepared for this, for whatever specter was rising to meet them. The breath caught in her throat as she contemplated her next move. There was a flicker of hope. In the deeper recesses of her mind, the defiance that had characterized her entrance into the mansion flickered back to life. Maybe she could somehow connect with Nathaniel, gain his trust. Maybe together they could unravel the darkness sneaking in around them. Suddenly, without warning, Nathaniel grabbed her arm, his fingers clamping tight. "We need to go." He pulled her toward the kitchen, the loud thud of footsteps above them echoing in their wake. As they rushed through the house, Lucy's thoughts raced. What darkness was buried in these walls? Who had come for her? As they burst through the kitchen door, Lucy caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of her eye, a shirking figure at the top of the stairs, just beyond the shadows. There was no mistaking it. It wasn't just the mansion that held secrets, someone else was here, someone hunting. A primal instinct surged through her as she faced Nathaniel, determination igniting her spirit. "We can't hide from this. We need to confront it." But just as the words left her lips, a deafening crash erupted from the front door, shaking the very foundations of the mansion. Nathaniel's expression morphed into one of pure terror as he glanced at her. "It's too late," he breathed. Lucy swallowed hard, her breath hitching in her throat. The moment of truth had arrived. What would come bursting through that door? And more importantly, what monstrous truth awaited them both? The thick wooden door rattled violently on its hinges as something of force she couldn't see slammed against it from the other side. Dust and splinters rained down like blood from an open wound, and the air crackled with an energy that seemed to consume everything around them. Lucy's heart thundered in her chest, a wild drum signaling the approach of something terrible. "Run!" Nathaniel's voice cut through the chaos, a lifeline in the storm of fear. He yanked her towards the back door, the same small entry they had barely noticed upon rushing inside. But before they could reach it, the door buckled again, harder this time, sending shockwaves through the floor. "Where do we go?" Lucy gasped, her instincts grappling with the overwhelming surge of danger. The kitchen was a maze of sharp edges and dark corners, shadows lurking just out of sight. She could feel the oppressive weight of the mansion closing in on them. "Anywhere but here." Nathaniel shouted, determination blazing in his eyes while he kept a tight hold on her hand. As they barreled past the counter, a glint caught Lucy's eye, a knife, its blade shining menacingly in the dim light. If they were going to face whatever was coming, she needed something, anything to defend herself. She grabbed it without a second thought, clutching it like a talisman against the encroaching darkness, her knuckles white. "Come on," Nathaniel urged, dragging her toward the door that led to the backyard. But as they reached for the handle, the front door splintered open with a violent crash, revealing a figure framed in the doorway. It was a man, tall, looming, his features shrouded in the shadows. But Lucy could see enough to know his eyes were cold and sweeping, cutting through the chaos to fix on her with a predatory focus. "Look who's finally ventured out," the man's voice rang out, smooth but laced with an edge that scraped against her skin like a knife. He stepped forward, a grin tugging at the corner of his lips. "You must be the new toy." The word toy lit a fire of rage in Lucy's chest, momentarily overriding her fear. I'm not anyone's toy. She shouted, raising the knife though her hands trembled as adrenaline flooded through her veins. Oh, but you are, he replied, taking another step forward, his presence swallowing the air around them. You've come to play a role in the mansion's story. And it's about time the past was reckoned with. Nathaniel shifted beside her, fear flickering in his wide eyes. We can't let him take you, he cried, his voice breaking with urgency. But the man laughed, a chilling sound that echoed around them. Take her? No, no, I'm here to see her awaken. A palpable tension manifested in the air, heavy and oppressive. Lucy felt reality shift around her, memories not her own clawing at the edges of her mind. It was as if the very walls of the mansion were breathing her name. Suddenly, the man lunged. Time slowed as Lucy instinctively stepped to the side, adrenaline surging as she thrust the knife toward him. She felt the blade slip past him, a sharp snip in the tapestry of chaos. Don't you see? You can't escape this place, he hissed, retreating just enough to avoid her blow but still closing in. You are bound to it, just like the others. Others? The weight of his words crashed down around her. Had she not just stumbled into a trap, but rather a legacy left to continue? The thought chilled her to the bone. Run! Nathaniel urged again, and this time, Lucy felt the urgency in his voice seep into her legs. With that, they darted past the menacing figure and collided with the backyard door just as the tension behind them burst into chaos. What awaited them outside the unknown, the answers, or worse? As Lucy flung open the door, the cool night air embraced them, but not without remnants of their fear clinging like shadows. She turned just in time to see him launching toward them with a fury that screamed revenge. Do you really think you can escape a history that knows you by heart? He shouted, rage carving his features into something monstrous, and with that, they were thrust into a night that promised to tear apart everything they thought they knew. What had she woken up in this mansion? And would they truly be free or merely caught in a web woven long before her footsteps had crossed the threshold? The night air bit at Lucy's skin as she stumbled into the yard, her breath coming in rapid bursts. Nathaniel was right beside her, his grip unwavering, each pulse of his hand reminding her they weren't alone. Moving chaotically, they darted across the moonlit grass, glancing back to catch sight of the dark figure looming in the doorway, his silhouette sharp against the mansion's fading light. Where do we go? Lucy's voice rose above the night, trembling with both fear and determination. Over the fence. We need to get out of here. Nathaniel's eyes darted around, searching for an escape. Her gaze locked onto a rickety wooden fence at the edge of the yard, an obstacle that loomed like a promise of freedom. They charged towards it. She could feel the anger of the man behind them pulsating like a heartbeat, the threat weaving tightly around her, closing in. Lucy! Nathaniel's shout sent a jolt through her. They were nearing the fence, but her legs were starting to feel like lead. Jump now! As they reached the base of the fence, Lucy lunged upward, her hands grasping for anything to hoist her over. With a frantic scramble, she climbed, her heart racing. She could almost feel the heat of his anger on her back, imagining his breath just a few steps behind. Their feet hit solid ground on the other side of the fence, the world suddenly feeling colder, darker. But there was a moment of sweet relief, a brief pause that allowed them to catch their breath. Which way? She panted, glancing at Nathaniel. Keep running. His voice nudged her into action again, and they took off down a dirt path flanked by towering trees. The mansion stood ominously behind them, a dark giant almost alive, watching their escape. But it wasn't just the house they needed to fear. In the thick silence, she swore she could hear whispers carried by the wind, taunting her, reminding her of the truth she hadn't yet understood. The connection to the mansion, to whatever the man represented, was pulling at her, a tether she couldn't see. A flash of movement caught her eye. Nathaniel, there! She shouted, pointing towards a shadow shifting in the underbrush. Just keep going. He urged, his voice rising in pitch, but Lucy couldn't shake the feeling of being pursued not just by the man, but by something deeper, something rooted in the mansion itself. Each step she took stirred the echoes of forgotten memories within the labyrinth of her mind, hints of a life she didn't fully comprehend. Suddenly, a howl pierced the darkness, primal and raw. The ground seemed to tremble as they pressed on, the sound morphing into laughter, a specter of madness that followed them, a mockery of their frantic flight. With every stride, the weight of history bore down, winding around her throat like a noose, squeezing tighter. "Lucy, stay focused," Nathaniel shouted, desperation cracking his voice. The path forked ahead, the left leading into a thick brush of trees, the right stretching toward an old, crumbling road that seemed to whisper of distant safety. "Which way?" Lucy gasped, panic tinging her voice. Before Nathaniel could respond, the air shifted, a chill seeping in, chilling her bones. They had to make a choice. They were running from a dark fate, but which path held the promise of freedom? "Right," Nathaniel said. "Trust me." They turned down the road, but as they did, the laughter grew louder, echoing around them, warping the stillness of the night into something grotesque and unrecognizable. Shadows danced under the trees, morphing into figures that beckoned them closer. "Run." The urgency in Nathaniel's voice drove them forward, but Lucy felt the weight of unseen eyes on her, wrapping her in a shroud of terror. Suddenly, they burst into a clearing, moonlight spilling over a decrepit shack that leaned precariously to one side. Was it a sanctuary, or another trap? As they approached, the door creaked open slowly, as if inviting them in with a sordid promise of sanctuary. "What should we do?" she whispered, dread pooling in the pit of her stomach, but just as they hesitated, the taunting laughter returned. Swirling around them like a cyclone, tightening the air, pulling them into the maw of something ancient and unforgiving. "Lucy, we have to enter. Now!" Nathaniel shouted, fear overriding his own hesitations. With terror intertwined with trust, Lucy stepped forward, crossing the threshold into the unknown. What other secrets awaited them inside, and could they confront the legacy that bound them to this wretched place? Would they find answers or new horrors? The inside of the shack was unlike anything Lucy had expected. Moonlight streamed through the cracked windows, illuminating dusty remnants of a forgotten life. Faded photographs hung crooked on the walls, and a tattered rug lay bunched in the corner. The air was thick with a musty scent, mixed with something sharper, almost metallic. "Keep your voice down," Nathaniel whispered urgently, his eyes darting around as if searching for an intruder. He stepped inside cautiously, pulling Lucy with him. They stood in an uncomfortable silence, the atmosphere heavy with unsaid words. Lucy's heart raced, the tension thick enough to slice with a knife. Every creak of the old wooden floorboards seemed amplified, like a countdown to an explosion. "Do you think he followed us?" Lucy asked, her voice barely above a whisper, fear draping over her like a heavy coat. "I don't know," Nathaniel replied, his brow furrowed. "But we can't stay here long." For a split second, they stood there, fear anchoring them in place. Just then, a loud bang echoed from outside, the sound of a door slamming shut. Their eyes widened, and without thinking, Nathaniel grabbed her wrist, pulling her deeper into the shack. "Over there." He pointed to a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. "It might lead us to safety." Before she could respond, Nathaniel was already moving, and she stumbled after him. The stairs creaked ominously as they descended, each step more daunting than the last. The pitch blackness swallowed them, and Lucy's hand instinctively tightened around Nathaniel's. "Why did we come here?" she hissed, glancing back nervously at the dim light above. "I don't know. But we have to find out what's down here. There has to be a way out." Suddenly, they reached the bottom, and an eerie glow illuminated the room. Dim and flickering, the light came from a series of candles arranged haphazardly on an old wooden table in the center. Surrounding it were piles of books, some stacked precariously, others strewn haphazardly across worn-out shelves. "Look at this," Nathaniel said, crouching down to examine one of the books, a heavy leather tome, its cover adorned with strange symbols. "These look like journals?" Lucy's dread morphed into curiosity as she approached the table. Flipping through the old pages, she was met with handwritten notes, frantic scribbles, and strange drawings of a house that looked strikingly familiar. Suddenly, a chill swept through the room like an icy gust. It sent a shiver down her spine. She knew that feeling too well. We shouldn't be here. Wait, Nathaniel said sharply, his eyes locked onto something behind her. Lucy turned just in time to see a fleeting shadow sweep past the doorway. Her heart dropped, adrenaline rushing through her veins. Did you see that? Yeah, he replied, standing up. We need to hide. Now. They ducked behind a stack of boxes as the sound of footsteps echoed in the silence. Lucy pressed her back against the cold wood, pulse racing, every nerve ending screaming for her to run. The footsteps grew louder, and then came the creaking of the stairs. Someone was coming down, moving slowly and deliberately. The air thickened, and Lucy struggled to catch her breath. Stay quiet, Nathaniel whispered fiercely, his eyes wide, reflecting their shared terror. The footsteps stopped by the bottom step. Lucy held her breath, straining to hear, every fiber of her being wanting to plead for safety. And then silence. Had they been discovered? In the darkness, they waited, fear crawling against their skin. What would they face as the door creaked open, inviting them into an uncertain fate? Would they uncover the truth, or was it time to confront the ghost of the mansion waiting just beyond the shadows? The stillness pressed in around them, a thick shroud of dread. Again, Lucy felt that icy grip of fear around her throat, making it hard to breathe. The dim light flickering from the candles seemed to pulse with their racing hearts, casting wavering shadows that danced like ominous specters. Nathaniel's hand, warm yet firm, tightened around her wrist as they waited in taut silence. Sweat trickled down Lucy's back, every little sound a skittering mouse, the rustle of their own clothes amplified in her mind, drowning out reason. The pause stretched on, every second feeling like an eternity. Then came a slow creak of hinges. They couldn't see who had entered, but Lucy could feel the weight of the presence that filled the basement. Breaths shallow, heart pounding, she leaned closer to Nathaniel, the warmth of his body offering a sliver of comfort against the chill in the air. "Who's there?" a gravelly voice called from the darkness, tinged with disinterest. "I know you're hiding. You can't just wander in here like lost little sheep." Lucy's stomach dropped. She peered through the stacks, praying they wouldn't be spotted. Panic coursed through her veins. What if they had done something awful to the last people who stepped foot here? The stories of the old mansion always seeped into the town like a bad cold, whispers of eerie happenings, lost souls, and mysteries that left a permanent mark on anyone who dared to tread on the property. "Look for them," the voice commanded, more sharply this time. "I need to know if they're in here." Footsteps resumed, moving with purpose, searching the shadows that cloaked the corners of the basement. Lucy's heart raced. Time was running out. They needed a plan, a way out, and fast. "Now or never," Nathaniel whispered, his voice steady, betraying none of the fear rippling through Lucy. Drawing in a deep breath, sensing their moment dwindling, she nodded, and they both shifted, trying to gauge their surroundings. The room was cluttered enough for them to navigate silently, but any misstep could be catastrophic. Suddenly, the candlelight flickered violently as if caught in a gust of wind, casting long shadows across the walls. "Did you see that?" Nathaniel glanced nervously at her, his eyes wide. Before she could answer, the figure moved closer. A tall silhouette emerged from the shadows, its outline stark against the flickering light. The figure's features were obscured, but Lucy could make out a glint of metal in its hand. come out, wherever you are," it taunted, voice low and mocking. "I'll give you one last chance to play hide and seek." Fear crawled deeper into Lucy's throat, and with a squeeze of his hand, Nathaniel pulled her toward the far corner, desperate to escape the monster closing in on them. There had to be a way out. A window, an exit, anything, and as if summoned by her thoughts, something glimmered on the far wall through a haze of dust. A small passage, covered by debris. It called to her like a lighthouse in a storm. "Over there," she whispered, pointing urgently. Just as they moved for the exit, a loud crash echoed behind them, sending debris scattering. The figure shouted, "There they are. Get them." Adrenaline surged as Lucy and Nathaniel bolted toward the passage, hearts pounding in sync with their hurried footsteps. The threat loomed close behind them, each note of panic drumming harder in her chest. Would they make it before being caught? The air thickened with fear as they hurtled towards the light at the other end of the tunnel, but were they racing toward freedom or deeper into the trap? As they plunged into the passage, Lucy's heart thundered in her chest. Darkness enveloped them, but flickers of light ahead beckoned like a moth to a flame. Hurry! Nathaniel urged, shoving aside a pile of forgotten crates that blocked their way. The sounds behind them grew louder, a clattering of footsteps pounding against the wooden floor, breathless and demanding. Get back here! The voice spat, venomous. Lucy could feel the dread coiling tighter around her, squeezing the air from her lungs. She nearly stumbled from the sheer weight of fear pressing down on her, but Nathaniel's firm grip kept her steady. They rushed through the narrow tunnel, the low ceiling forcing them to stoop and scramble over scattered debris. What if it's a dead end? She panted, panic creeping over her skin like cold water. It can't be. Just keep going. Nathaniel replied, his voice raw with urgency. The glow of light brightened, teasing them with hope as they pressed on. As they emerged from the tight space, a rush of air blasted against their faces, invigorating yet laden with the scent of damp earth. They stumbled into a larger chamber, illuminated by the soft flicker of lanterns swinging gently from the ceiling. The scene was both beautiful and terrifying. The walls were covered in ancient murals depicting scenes of a lavish life, dancing, feasting, and opulent gatherings. But beneath that beauty, an undeniable sense of foreboding loomed. We need to find something to defend ourselves, Lucy whispered, her breath hitching as she searched frantically around the room. Nathaniel pulled her back as something shifted near the entrance they had come through. Shapes began to emerge from the shadows, figures pouring into the chamber, their faces hidden under dark hoods, their movements slow and deliberate. What are they? Lucy's voice trembled. Part of the mansion's past, I guess, Nathaniel mumbled, fear etched on his face. We need to find a way to escape, now. The words barely crossed his lips when the figures halted, pointing at them like accusing fingers. You shouldn't have ventured here, one of the figures hissed, revealing a line of sharp, glistening teeth that shone menacingly in the lantern light. The others murmured in agreement, their voices low, almost chanted. Why? What do you want? Nathaniel demanded, trying to sound brave, but his voice wavered. You've awakened what was long buried now, you must pay the price, the figure replied, the threat hanging in the air like a storm cloud, heavy and electric. Adrenaline coursed through Lucy as they stepped back, seeking escape. What do they mean? She murmured, heart racing. Were they treasure seekers or something far more sinister? A sudden rumble echoed outside, shaking the foundation of the chamber. Dust rained from the ceiling, casting a shower of dim light around them. Nathaniel grabbed Lucy's arm. We can't stay. There has to be another way out. Panic blinded her thoughts as they dashed across the chamber, eyes surveying every inch for an escape route. But from behind, the whispers drew closer, mixing with the sound of the crumbling mansion. Just as they spotted a door in the far wall, the shadows surged forward. Lucy turned just in time to see the closest figure lunging, hands outstretched, ready to claim them both. Run! Nathaniel shouted, pushing Lucy ahead as they dashed for the door. As they hurtled towards it, Lucy's mind spun with questions. Who were these figures? What was this mansion truly hiding? The door swung open before them, revealing darkness punctuated by the distant glow of what could either be their salvation or their doom. Would they escape into the night or straight into an even darker fate? The darkness swirled around them like a thick fog as Lucy and Nathaniel tumbled through the door. Cold air hit them, biting, as they both stumbled into a narrow corridor dimly lit by flickering sconces on the walls. Their breathing was ragged, heartbeats drumming in synchrony with their panic. What now? Lucy gasped, feeling the pulse of dread course through her veins. Keep running. Nathaniel urged, his eyes wide and alert, scanning their surroundings like a hawk. The echoing sound of heavy footsteps behind them began to fade, replaced by a chilling silence. They raced down the hallway, but it seemed to stretch endlessly, mere shadows dancing at the edges of their vision. Old portraits hung on the walls, their subjects peering down at them with disapproving looks. The air was thick with the scent of mildew, as though they were traversing the very bowels of a giant, decaying beast. What if they follow us? Lucy whispered, her voice trembling. If they do, we'll face them together, Nathaniel replied, clenching his jaw. There was a strength in his voice that she desperately needed. Then, out of the darkness ahead, a glimmer of light caught her eye. There. She pointed, her chest tight with hope and fear. They pushed forward, urgency propelling them, until they reached another door. This one appeared more ornate, with intricate carvings swirling over its surface, illuminated by the welcoming glow spilling from underneath. Should we? Lucy hesitated, her gut twisting. Do you have a better idea? Nathaniel's voice was clipped. When she didn't respond, he nodded decisively and pressed against the door, flinging it open wide. What lay beyond was a grand library, opulent in its design. Shelves towered, filled to the brim with dusty tomes and weathered scrolls, while a massive chandelier hung precariously from the ceiling. Each detail whispered of stories long forgotten. While Lucy breathed, overwhelmed by the space. But the beauty was cut short as they realized themselves exposed in the room. Suddenly, a chilling laugh echoed through the vast expanse, slithering through the heavy air. Lucy's heart sank. Who's there? In the dusky shadows of the library, figures emerged from the recesses of the room, their cloaks swirling like a storm around them. The leader, a tall figure with an elegant but sinister presence, stepped forward, his voice dripping with a perverse sweetness. Welcome to your doom, he said, eyes glinting like polished stones as he smiled, revealing those same wickedly sharp teeth. You think you can just walk away? Another figure hissed, stepping into the light. The tension snapped as Nathaniel positioned himself in front of Lucy protectively. Stop! Nathaniel demanded, adrenaline sharpening his resolve. We just want to leave. Leave? The leader echoed, an appetite for chaos evident in his gaze. You were drawn here for a reason. And reasons demand consequences. The weight of those words crashed over them like a wave, the air thick with a suffocating sense of inevitability. Lucy's eyes darted around, hunting for a chance to escape. Before she could say anything, the leader raised a hand, and the air shimmered. A sense of foreboding washed over her as the room began to twist and fade away. What are you doing? Lucy shouted, panic creeping back in. Something far worse than what you stumbled into, he replied, a smirking smile dancing across his lips. At that moment, the library itself began dissolving, tiles flipping and bookshelves collapsing into shadows. Lucy! Nathaniel yelled, reaching for her as darkness consumed them, pulling them deeper into an abyss. Would they remain trapped forever within these haunted walls, or uncover a way to fight back against the shadows that sought to claim them? The void enveloped Lucy and Nathaniel, stretching time and space into an infinite blackness. It felt like being sucked into a whirlpool, a tangible force pulling them apart. Lucy's breath came in quick gasps, panic setting in. Hold on to me. Nathaniel shouted, his voice a lifeline in the murky expanse. She reached for him, fingers clasping tightly, and felt the warmth of his presence amidst the chill that surrounded them. Suddenly, a violent jolt slammed through their bodies. The darkness cracked like glass, shattering into shards of light. Then, with a blinding flash, they landed with a hard thud on a surface that felt cold and unyielding. Lucy lay there for a moment, disoriented, trying to comprehend her surroundings. As her vision cleared, she realized they were no longer in the library. This place was starkly different. It was a massive cavern, illuminated by an unnatural light that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. Shadowy figures loomed in the periphery, whispering incoherently like the rustle of dry leaves. Get up! Nathaniel urged, tugging at her arm. She scrambled to her feet, and as they stood, the echo of their movements reverberated around them, creating a cacophony of sound in the stillness. What is this place? She asked, her heart racing. The abyss, I think, Nathaniel replied, scanning the shadows for any sign of their pursuers. That's what I've heard spoken of in hushed tones. Before they had time to digest their new reality, a figure stepped into the light, shrouded in darkness but radiating a malevolent charisma. It was the leader from the library, now grinning wider, a treacherous glint in his eyes. You shouldn't have run, my dear, he cooed mockingly. You've spilled secrets that should have stayed buried. What do you want from us? Lucy's voice trembled, but inside, she felt a spark of determination. The leader took a step forward, the shadows curling around him like hungry serpents. You are part of a much larger story now. A tale of power, betrayal, and unspeakable horrors. It's a gift, really. You just need to embrace it. Embrace what? Nathaniel shot back, his tone sharp. You want to trap us in this nightmare? We won't let you. Oh, but you already are, he grinned. This is just the beginning. The words reverberated through the cavern, and with them, the shadows surged forward, swirling like a tempest, engulfing Lucy and Nathaniel. They gasped as cold, clammy hands seemed to reach out, grasping at their limbs, trying to pull them apart. Fear gripped Lucy's chest, her heart racing as she fought against the tendrils of darkness. Stay together. Nathaniel shouted, his voice strained. They stumbled backward, desperately trying to maintain their grip on each other as the shadows threatened to tear them apart. With every ounce of strength, Lucy braced herself and yanked Nathaniel closer. We can't let them win. In a moment of clarity amidst chaos, she felt something shift deep within her, an anger igniting her spirit. They want us to feel powerless, to lose hope. But we won. The shadows paused, the whispers stuttering as her conviction reverberated through the abyss. Let us show them what we're made of, Nathaniel said, his eyes fierce. Together, they focused on the flickering light that remained within the cavern, trying to channel their fear into defiance. With sheer determination, they pushed against the darkness, imagining it falling away like dust. But just as they thought they could break free, the leader's laughter echoed loudly, slicing through the tension. You think you can fight me? I control the shadows. They are my servants, and you are merely my playthings. With a sudden and terrifying rush, the shadows lunged forward again, and Lucy felt herself being pulled away from Nathaniel, his hands slipping from her grasp. No. Nathaniel. She screamed, but the void closed around her. She was swallowed by darkness, the crushing weight of despair settling over her. As she struggled against the encroaching blackness, she wondered if she would ever see Nathaniel again. What if this was it? What would it mean to be trapped in this endless night? And then, amidst the chaos, a flicker of brightness pierced the shadows, a glimmer of hope. Lucy felt it call to her, a whisper of resistance that urged her to fight back. Will she reclaim her strength and find Nathaniel? Or will the shadows claim them both forever? As the darkness wrapped itself around Lucy, an excruciating sense of helplessness washed over her. The shadows closed in, a chilling embrace threatening to consume every last ounce of hope. But deep within her, a flicker of defiance glowed like a dying ember. She remembered Nathaniel's determination, the warmth of his hand gripping hers just moments ago. She squeezed her eyes shut and envisioned a light, a beacon of hope that she could muster against the oppressive dark. Fight, she screamed against the void, her voice breaking through the encompassing silence. Fight for us. Suddenly, the shadows halted. That flicker within her sparked into a roaring flame, pushing back against the smothering darkness. Lucy felt the sensation ripple like electric shockwaves through her, awakening a dormant power embedded deep within her soul. The light surged from her heart, pushing against the oppressive darkness, illuminating the cavern around her, and just like that, with her deep-seated strength unleashed, Lucy lunged forward, breaking free from the suffocating grip of despair. She felt herself moving towards Nathaniel, her voice ringing clear through the twilight chaos. Nathaniel. I'm coming. All at once, the shadows tore themselves from Lucy, swirling around as though confused, as if her refusal to be silenced had altered the game. From the thick, swirling miasma, Nathaniel staggered into view, dread etched across his features. The moment their eyes met, Lucy's heart surged with a hope greater than any shadow could diminish. I'm here. Nathaniel shouted, finding his footing, his spirit reinvigorated by her light. They dashed toward each other, arms outstretched. The energies coursing between them felt like sparks igniting a wildfire. Closer they ran, hands ready to hold tightly and never let go again. But the leader, his face twisted with rage, surged forward, shadows at his command. You think this is over? You cannot escape me. The very ground shuddered as he hurled a wave of dark energy towards them. Lucy stumbled but braced herself, channeling every ounce of resolve. Together, she shouted, with their eyes locked. Lucy and Nathaniel planted their feet and unleashed the brightness pouring from their hearts. A flash erupted as light collided head-on with the onslaught of darkness. The air crackled with energy, and the sheer force of their unity pushed back against the swirling shadows like a supernova. No! The leader screamed, his figure distorting, rendered powerless against their shining beacon of strength. Then, in one fierce pulse, the light burst forth, plunging into the darkness with a blinding brilliance. The shadows shrieked as they unraveled, scattering like autumn leaves in the wind. Lucy and Nathaniel stood rooted, an unyielding force against the tide of night that had threatened to drag them into the abyss. The leader dissipated, swallowed by the glow that illuminated everything around them. The cavern trembled, losing its hold. The shadows evaporated, leaving behind a peaceful stillness, embracing their victory like a soft, warm embrace. Panting, they found themselves standing amidst the remnants of the shadows, trembling yet triumphant. Lucy pulled Nathaniel into a tight embrace, their hearts racing within the sanctuary of their mutual strength. We did it, she whispered, disbelief flooding her voice. We did. Nathaniel replied, eyes wide with awe and gratitude. The cavern began to shimmer, the exit materializing with light spilling from the walls. Together, they stepped forward, aware that the sinister mansion-esque grip was finally severed, but uncertain of what awaited them beyond. As they emerged into the dawn, the world stretched wide and new before them, sunlight spilling over the horizon in brilliant colors. The shadows behind them faded into whispered memories, a chapter closed in the legacy of Nathaniel's family and the mansion that had once felt like a prison. They shared a look of understanding, a bond that would never be broken. We are free, Lucy said, the weight of the past lifting as they walked away from the old mansion together. Together, they forged ahead, ready to embrace whatever the future held, knowing now that they carried the light inside them, a powerful force against the darkness forever. And as they disappeared into the brightening day, a lingering promise hung in the air: the past, now acknowledged, would no longer shadow their lives. The future was theirs to claim. Now that you've enjoyed this thrilling conclusion, you must subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending because your voice matters. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support.